What's up everybody, I'm Rhinociart, and today we are doubling down on the doll videos because we have a, backlog. That's the problem with working on a number of dolls at a time like we do. You either have none of them done, or all of them at once. This doll video is going to be another 2-for-1, not only because I have to clear out the save files on my computer before it, explodes, but also because these dolls were made in tandem. Back during quarantine, B and I put together our first custom dolls. We made mini versions of my mom and my sister. While I'm not going to be sharing actual photos of my mom and my sister, both because I don't want to put them on blast on the internet, and also because I'm not sure my attempts at realism are actually that great, we did do some funky stuff with these dolls that I thought would be kind of fun to share. Our starter dolls for this project were a Monster High Freaky Fusion Scara Screams and a Hazel-Eyed Liv doll, the latter of which we chose both for the height difference and just to try something new. We'd used some of this Scara's hair for our final Pam doll, so she's already in hard shape. But that's not a big deal because we're gonna take her hair all off anyway. Liv dolls have articulation in the pelvis and the ankles, plus extra range in the knees compared to Monster High dolls, which is super cool. But they also have really distorted proportions. Her foot isn't even a fraction of her face size when they're supposed to be close to even. Why is your head so big, ma'am? The hole in her head is what Liv wigs plug into, so we'll be ignoring that. It's always kind of fun getting thrift store dolls that still have most of their accessories, because I never paid much attention to these dolls on store shelves, and neither of us are actually doll collectors. Something about seeing dolls in their fresh out-of-the-box state awakens the excited little kid in me. We always keep the bits we remove, because accessories can be repainted or used for later projects, and the clothes can be modified or cut up to make patterns from. Time for a bath! Since this project, I've discovered that heating up the dolls' heads with hot water is my preferred method of beheading, not only because it isn't noisy, but because the heat saturates the glue inside of the head for longer and makes it easier to scrape out. I'll also make some tea here because, well, I've got the water. Would you like a top-up, ma'am? Once your doll's been thoroughly drowned, grab her head, preferably with a towel, and then just gently pop it off. You tend to have to wiggle it a little bit to get it around the neck peg spikes, but the vinyl should be pretty soft by this point. And maybe put a towel down so the water doesn't go everywhere like it did for me. I was so gung-ho to start scraping out the hair plugs while the head was hot that I totally forgot to cut Scara's hair first. And then I was like, wait, why is this so difficult? Love that ADHD lack of forethought. So once you've mopped up the water mess, take some scissors to your girl's locks and trim them down as short as you can manage. The smaller the hair plugs, the easier they'll be to remove. Then bring back the pliers and go scrape crazy. You can reheat the head in the hot water if the glue's getting stiff again. This doll had a plastic tag in her head for some reason. Maybe it was meant to keep the cat ear headband she had on? Anyway, I just cut that off. Once you've got the head bald as heck, you want to use 100% acetone to remove all her good looks. I always find this stuff dries out my skin, so it may not be a bad idea to use gloves if you're sensitive. A couple of cotton pads and some squishery should get you there. Just be aware that the paint on the head likes to smear, so try to wipe it up and away instead of towards the face. The hair part on this doll tore while I was derooting her, so I'm gonna fix that up with a needle and thread. I've seen other customizers using superglue, but thread's just sturdier and less potentially reactive. It can be tricky to get the needle through, so feel free to heat up the head again and or use a thimble or pliers to push it through. Using existing hair holes as your entry and exit points can be helpful too. I personally hate these ding-dang raised factory serial codes, so I make sure they're all thoroughly sanded off before I give the body an all-over light sanding to remove its shine. You're mostly going to find them on the low back and the limbs, but keep an eye out for sneaky ones hiding on the bottom of the feet or in the elbow fold. Do the sanding dance, do 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 do. Because this doll is supposed to represent my sister, and my sister isn't blue, I had to color change the body. Foolishly, I thought I could just slap a couple of layers of white acrylic paint on there and then a skin tone, but it's not really that easy. After 3 layers of white, I realized I first had to neutralize the green by painting over the doll in its opposite color, which meant slapping an equally pastel pink over everything and then getting onto the skin tones. It's hard to tell in the footage, but I was having a really rough time mixing a good skin tone. It kept coming out too yellowy. Repeat comparisons to the Liv doll helped me adjust with subsequent layers by adding more red to the mix, and then layers of pastels brought everything totally together. Because I'd done oopsied with the initial white layers, the doll's paint is thicker than I'd like, which meant that chipping on her joints is particularly gunky. But we learn as we go. I had a rough time with the face up on this doll too, because I was trying to force a smile onto a very frowny face mold. Also, do you like this horrifying doll pike? I know I've shown it before, but this round was especially funny because I had a couple of hands being color changed that were strapped at the top. This hobby sure is something. Anyway, because I was fighting so hard against the mold, I tried highlighting the pockets of the mouth with white, which unfortunately showed up a little bit more than I wanted it to on the final result. I referenced photos of my sister while I was drawing the face, but translating someone's real-world features onto a 3D object is not easy. Not terrible for a first shot, though. The whites of the eyes were brightened up with acrylic paint, as were the pupils, and I dotted in some iridescent bronze to act as the hazel freckles. A slap of gloss later, and this face-up was done. B made this sweet little blazer with the teeniest seed bead buttons, a green t-shirt, and then eventually some star print leggings, though initially she'd crafted these little jeans instead. Because my sister is a photographer, B wanted to make a miniature version of her camera bag, which she did using a KD box and some scraps of denim. She did boots up using a masking tape pattern and then some interfaced upholstery fabric, and decorated them with painted craft foam. B also put together wigs for the dolls using yarn. We figured that wigs were going to be the easiest way to make sure all the janky bits on both their heads were covered. Aren't they beautiful? As you may have noticed, the Liv doll had already been given a face-up in that photo, so let me backtrack. There wasn't a whole lot I could modify on this girl since her eyes are inset and she's already got molded on hair. Mostly this was going to be a matter of contouring! I taped off the eyes with some washi tape to protect them from the Mr. Super Clear I was going to use between layers of the watercolor pencils and pastels, but it slipped at one point, so the doll does have some fog on one eye. I wiped off the factory paint she had with acetone, and then took sandpaper to her body, same as with the Scara doll. There was some slight discoloration on the body. I think her hands, feet, and head are made of a different plastic than the rest, but I was pretty sure that enough shading layers would more or less blend that all in. Because there wasn't a lot I could really change about the shape of the doll's face, I focused on emphasizing features. My mom's got big, dark eyelashes and thinner lips than the doll mold does, so I manipulated those areas as best I could. I added faint smile lines to age the doll's face a little bit, and then paid attention to the shape of my mom's eyebrows because that was a free space I had to play with. She also got some cute little freckles. Mom polishes her nails whenever she gets a chance, so we had to add a pop of classy red onto her hands too. My sister's doll got a softer pink manicure. Because the Liv dolls have a completely different body shape from the Monster High dolls, Bee needed new patterns for her clothes. In order to draft them, she disassembled the existing clothes that came on the doll, traced those pieces onto paper, and then modified them where necessary. Liv got some swanky mock-ups of a jacket, t-shirt, and pants, which altogether kinda look like a tracksuit or scrubs or something. Love that for her. The jacket was sewn out of an actual sweater material and has gorgeous hand-embroidered details around the pockets. The shirt be made out of leftover fabric from that green thrift store dress I flipped. When my mom mentioned wanting a doll, she asked that we also make it a version of her grocery store uniform, so B put together an apron out of interface fabric that I drew some lines onto with a Posca pen. The hat gave us mega trouble. Figuring out how to get the shape of a ball cap to not only fit onto the doll's head, but stay, baffled us for a long time. Eventually I had the notion to sew an elastic into the rim to hold it down, and while it worked, it's also incredibly ugly. It was a huge pain in the butt to sew too, so maybe don't use this method to make your own doll hats. The doll's little running shoes were another experiment. B made them entirely out of Warbler. These were a Christmas gift, which meant that I also had to make them ugly sweaters. I had to. Funnily enough, my mom gifted us a doll back, one with absolutely runway-level outfit design. I know our dolls won't ever measure up to that, but let me show you the final results anyway. so much for watching this, guys. If you liked it, please let me know with a like or a comment or maybe a hello on one of my other social media sites. I'm on Tumblr mostly, but also a little bit on Instagram. And B and I do have a doll-specific Instagram that you can check out if that's kind of mostly your jam. Also, if you'd like to see more of this kind of stuff in the future, feel free to slippy slappy that stub stooby button, and I will see you in the next video. Okay, bye! What's up? Baby, you're fine, you work. Something, 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 work. Worky. This doll big little. Ooh, man, I'm hungry.
I somehow suddenly remembered that I'm starving away, wasting to nothing.
Man, I gotta do that more often. The sound quality is so much better.
This is my new friend. Hey, buddy. Yes, what's up? I don't have anything for you. Majestic Seagull.